The Love What You Do podcast. Today we have a very special guest with me today. It is Jaret Andrés. Jaret's a data scientist mentor who helps people break into data science. He has a bachelor's of science honors with a joint computer science and statistics. Is that a major, minor? What is that, Jaret?
No, that's a major. Double honors, yeah.
It's a major. All right. Specializing in databases and artificial intelligence. Jaret, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So pumped. So before Jaret and I nerd out on AI and data science, you call it data or data?
Honestly, I switch between both, so it's whatever.
Okay, so do I. So I was always I was wondering getting on this show, like if I was going to say it wrong the whole time.
Yeah,
But
nice.
yeah, I'll probably say it both ways. So I had the pleasure of meeting Jaret out in Peru, of all places. We have a mutual friend named Amanda, and Amanda and Jaret and a large group of folks are traveling around the world for a year. They're doing 1 month in a different country for 12 months. And I had the pleasure of joining them for about 10 days in Peru. And now Jaret and this group are in Colombia. And just meeting you, Jaret, just in like a couple minutes, I could just tell you had this amazing energy. I appreciated your growth mindset, and just meeting you, it was very obvious that you're just one of those people that is kind of changing the world. And you can see that in the way you treat people around you. And you're just very like empathetic and caring. And you have a depth of knowledge in AI and passion for AI. So I think we met at lunch, like the first or second day I was there, and we just got right into it about what you love, what I love, and you were asking me a bunch of questions, and I was asking you a bunch of questions, and we hit it off real well. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Honestly, yeah, we clicked well, and I loved it. It was great meeting you. Thanks for joining us in Peru.
Yeah, for sure, man. It was such a blast. This podcast, the purpose is kind of to explore different careers, career paths, passions, and particularly interview people that have been able to combine their passion with their career and really doing something they love. And it's obvious that you love what you do. And so I guess if we could kind of start, where did you grow up?
Sure. So I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. You probably never really even heard of it. It's often called Winterpeg because it's so cold, colder than the North Pole often in the winter. But also we have really hot summers. Yeah. So, have you heard of Winnipeg?
I've heard of Winnipeg.
Okay.
I couldn't put it on a map. I've been to Canada a few times, but I couldn't tell you where Winnipeg is. Is it west, east?
So it's literally like dot in the middle of Canada. It's like right above North Dakota. So it's like an hour to
Okay.
North Dakota, right from my doorstep kind of thing. So that's kind of where we would go often.
Awesome. And what's the makeup of your family growing up?
Yeah. So
How
I
many
guess
brothers and sisters?
yeah. So one sister, 3 years older. And then we're
Hmm.
kind of like low end of middle class, I would say. And then never really
Yeah.
moved. And then like parents were together with an asterisk kind of thing, I would say.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
yeah.
Cool. Did you play any sports growing up, or what were you into like in high school? What was your jam?
Yeah, sure. So honestly, like I had a feeling you're gonna ask me this question. So like
Yeah.
I pretty much played anything like soccer, basketball, badminton, volleyball, all in high school, track. So like I played soccer and basketball each for like 15 years plus, but like track and basketball
Cool.
were definitely like my two. Like sprints is typically what I would do. And like I actually was like finished top 10 in Manitoba, kind of at my in grade 12, or I guess, in high school.
Yeah.
And then right now it's just kind of like I picked up tennis and just I love being active. I'm doing different random things.
Awesome. So you didn't play any ice hockey?
No, actually, no. It's funny because everybody who talks to me about that, they say, "Yeah, you don't play hockey."
That's hilarious because I was in Houston and I did nothing but ice hockey.
Nice,
So
yeah,
yeah, it was a real struggle trying to find ice time. And
yeah.
yeah, we did our best here in Houston. So I'm curious with data science and AI. Um, did you dabble in any of that in high school? Were you good at science and math in high school? Did you enjoy it? Hate it?
Yeah, sure. So like I would say math came really easy to me on that kind of side, like solving puzzles and like solving problems came really easy. I never touched coding until realistically. my first year of university, just trying a bunch of different things. I kind of fell into data, and maybe we'll kind of talk about that after. But
Yeah.
like how I fell into AI and data, it wasn't actually like planned, and I started coding very very late. So and kind of like to go on your question of like was it challenging? It was like yeah, it
Yeah.
was really challenging. Like coding is hard, right? Like coding and AI is
Yeah.
hard, right? Like it's definitely not easy, and I definitely had like I love it. I love the challenge. I love the struggle, but it's definitely like it was a grind to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so specifically AI, were you dabbling in that in high school? Like prior to going to college, you were interested in that or not? Not quite yet.
So I honestly didn't even know what AI and like
Right.
machine learning and data science was until like maybe my fourth year of university. Realistically, right? Like I didn't know like how I fell into it was like my first year of university. I just took a bunch of different things, a bunch of maths, a bunch of engineering, a bunch of computer related stuff, psychology. I love psychology,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then I just fell in love with like problem with code, and then like okay, well stats is really easy for me, right? Like it's very comes natural. I love those numbers. I love like making estimations and predictions kind of thing. And then
Hmm.
when I was in like year 3 and year 4, it was just kind of like, oh hey, I guess I'm in data science, right? Like I guess I know because it's like when you actually like break down like AI and data science, it's like what is it? It's software mixed with stats, right? And stats is
Right.
AI, right? Like people don't often realize that. But the statisticians that were back then who are angry that everybody's obsessed with data science now, but that's what statisticians did for years, honestly.
Is it? I mean, is it like kind of scaling stats? I mean, is that what AI is? Is just statistics at scale,
So
or
what I would say
is that the right way to?
it's statistics and like high level of mathematical with the power of computation, right? So that's kind of why like that
Got it.
intersection of software and statistics really match, right? Because like
Yeah.
people think it's like, oh, AI will take over the world, but like what is AI, right? AI is essentially you're finding patterns between data, right? And what does a statistician
Right.
do? AK find patterns between data, right? And that's essentially what AI is, right? So then I kind of just had that, okay, cool. I know how to code, I know software. Cool. I'm really good at stats. Oh, I guess I'm pretty good at data science then. And then I kind of just fell into it. I'm like, okay, let me learn some more, I guess.
So it was a pretty natural
Yeah.
step by step process for you, sort of. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so was there anything in college that in learning all of this that really stuck out? Was there any like paradigm shift or aha moments or anything that you were just like, wow, like this is powerful or
Um, like of course I know it's powerful, but I didn't don't think I had
yeah.
like I just like I am amazed and interested and shocked day by day with like the new trending things that's going on and like what you can do with chat GPT right now or like
Sure.
honestly any of the other like language transformer models like so what I would say is like there wasn't necessarily one big aha moment, but like continuously growth of like learning a little bit each day is kind of like one big aha moment kind of thing. Guess I would say.
Yeah. So what is it that you can do with chat GPT that excites you?
I guess I would say what can't you do with Chat GPT is a better question. But realistically,
Sure.
like a lot of the jobs that I would say people, I know people are worried about that, like losing their jobs, but it's the same thing with software, right? Like it removes the mundane and the easy and the boring tasks that we humans can do better and more complex and fun tasks, right? So what I would say is like
Yeah.
a lot of marketing, a lot of like honestly it's kind of replacing Google search right now, right? Because it gets you an answer faster, right? So your marketing plan, and that's
Yeah.
realistically kind of what as a new business owner kind of what I am really interested in right now about the marketing plans and how it can create me content and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of really what I would use it right now for.
Got it. So, how did you make the jump from data scientist to a mentor?
Yeah, that's a great question.
What was that like?
Yeah, so essentially what I would say is that again it kind of fell naturally. So when like I kind of after I had so I graduated and had a year and a half of experience roughly, and then my contract ended and I was looking for that next role and I thought it would be easy because I already had years of experience, and then I
Mhm.
struggled in the job search. And it was like 2 weeks and 3 weeks went by, and I'm like, what's going on, right? Like, am I not good enough, kind of thing? And I was at this point where I was like, I was going to quit. I was going to quit data and AI. I'm like, maybe I'm not good enough, right? People are often telling you you need
Yeah.
a PhD, you need a master's, you need 10 years of experience. And it's like, okay, well, maybe this is not for me, right? And I kind of got into this low point and then eventually kind of broke out of it. I just said, like, F it, like, F everyone, right? And I'm just going to kind of focus on me, build this
Yeah.
every single day, and I'm not going to compare, right? So, kind of
Yeah.
from that is when I landed that next role, a bunch of people kind of reached out to me, like, hey, how did you kind of break into the industry? And knowing that struggle that
Yeah.
I went through, I'm like, yo, I don't want anybody else to kind of go through that feeling as well. So I started kind of mentoring. I'm like, hey, this is what you kind of need to do. I did it for about 4 or 5 months, and then I kind of realized, just like, this is, I'm really good at this. Like, this is what I do naturally. Like, I love helping people to their
Yeah.
goals and like helping being them the best version of themselves, right? So then
Yeah.
after that, so now, like, fast forwarding, like, now it's 15 months roughly being a full time mentor, right? And what I would say is, um, yeah, like, so I always had that person, that people kind of connection to help people with that. And I was always into sports and like
Yeah.
motivated people, and I was always that team kind of player. And then even in the industry, like, I was a project manager and I was also a team lead on a data science team. Even being the youngest and the one with the least amount of degrees, just because my communication and my people skills kind of came naturally. So then I kind of just at the point
Yeah.
of what made me to kind of quit my full-time job was being a data scientist, was essentially is that I wasn't really fulfilled by helping a billionaire get more rich, right? Where it was a lot more fulfilling by helping someone actually get a job, or helping the little guy win, right? Like, helping them be the best version of
Yeah.
them.
It's a big
Yeah.
jump.
And also, then kind of like a side thing is that I kind of got lowballed in contract negotiation, and I said, kind of, F it, I'll do it myself, right? So then I'm like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
also gonna, I don't need your job anymore. I can do it myself with my mentoring. And that's kind of where we are today.
Love it. Awesome. So, what is it? I mean, have you had mentors in the past for yourself?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question, because this is actually what I say is like how I learned that you should always have a mentor, right? Is when I was in that low
Yeah.
point, and I did reach out and I met with about 15 to 20 mentors, right? And either they
Wow.
felt, I felt like they're just there for the money and they didn't really want to help me, right? Be the best version, or they wasn't as organized
Yeah.
as I wanted to be. So I ended up not going with a mentor, right? And I kind of made the silly mistakes, and mistakes that I made, if I wouldn't have made if I had a mentor, which is like including a forty thousand
Sure.
dollars mistake that I made. And looking back, it's like, why didn't I do that? I would have landed that job, got a job that I didn't hate, right? And I wouldn't have made that mistake.
Yeah.
So then, kind of my learning from that is
Yeah.
like, okay, now every goal I have, I'm going to get a mentor, right? So now I have like three goals right now for three mentors, right? For three different goals right now.
Yeah.
And I was even thinking yesterday, I'm like, I think it's
Amazing.
time for another mentor, right? Like, I have another goal. So it's like, honestly,
It's
I
awesome.
wasn't like, I, often like looking for a mentor. It's really about ego, right? It's like, I think I can do it myself. And
Mm,
that's how I was too, right? Like, I can do it myself. I don't need people to help me, right? You can pretty much
yeah.
learn anything for
Yeah.
free
Yeah.
online, realistically, right now, right? It's a data
Right.
information, it's informational stage.
It's all
Yeah,
there.
and what I would say is that, cool, all there's there, and it's also a little bit of information overload. So like, the reason why to get a mentor is
Sure.
like, it's actually going to save you time and money to get a mentor, right? And the results
Yeah.
I got from my mentor in, like, honestly, like, less than a week, right? It's like, it's crazy. I'm like, now I can't even think without having a mentor, to be honest. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
have you had mentors? Like,
I have. Yeah. I actually had him on this
oh, cool.
podcast. So yeah, he started as my health and fitness coach, but he quickly it was quickly evident just in his style of mentoring that if I'm not um, mentally and emotionally, healthy, then the fitness and eating healthy, none of that's going to happen.
You're
So
literally giving me chills.
his name's
I love
Thomas.
that.
Yeah, his name's Thomas Bisson, and he's on one of the episodes.
So,
And we would start every meeting with, where are you at, how are you feeling, and then if I wasn't, and he'd notice, he'd be like, I feel like you have a wall up or a little bit of pushback, what's going on? Like, he's really intuitive. And I'd be like, oh, the thing with the divorce and the whatever, and things going on with the business. And then it'd come out of me and we work through it. So
I love that. And like that's honestly exactly how I kind of run mine too, right? Like we got to get that mindset right. We got to get that emotional, right? Like
right.
nothing's off table. If you're struggling mentally, right? If you're depressed, right? Let's talk about it because we're not going to be a good data scientist and realistically we're not going to reach our goals if we're not taking care of our health or our mind, right? So
Mm-hmm.
honestly, one of the things I do is like I add like a little reminder each day and just ask the questions like, how's your energy today, right? Like, how are you doing, right?
Yeah.
What are the things that
Yeah.
you
That's a
yeah,
good
like
test.
what are the things that are
Yeah.
going well today, right? Like what are the things maybe not, right? But what can we improve, right? Those are big questions and
Yeah.
things. And often, like even if like you don't see the technical skills drastically improve, right? That first like 90 days of really focusing on your health and your mindset, and maybe journaling, right? That emotional intelligence, which I'm
Totally.
obsessed with. I love learning about that stuff. Is
Huge.
that so powerful? And realistically, it's like that's how it's allowed me to help me kind of design the life that I wanted realistically. And that's kind of what I want to help other people do as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's the same. A lot of journaling. He would even throw out prompts. When I'm stressed, he would be like, "Write down, just finish the sentence of I'm worried about dot dot dot. Just finish the sentence, or what scares me right now is finish the sentence." And it would just get out all of this chatter in the back of my head that was distracting me from focusing on anything very well. So yeah, huge fan of the
I love that.
journaling. So what do you what do you love about psychology? Let's jump into
Yeah,
that a
sure.
little
So
bit.
like I love understanding how the mind works, right? Like any thoughts that comes or
Hmm.
like how to I don't want to say manipulate, but like persuade people with psychology, right? Like and doesn't necessarily have to
Yeah,
be a
sales.
negative thing, right? You can persuade them to take the leap of getting help, right? Or just thinking and
Yeah.
I love this little thing that I do of just like in math it's called the transform theorem, right? Of just like breaking it step by step
Okay.
to get from A to D and getting them to see that how
Hmm.
tiny little improvement, right, or changing your mind can actually help you in the long run. So honestly, going back to your question
Yeah.
about psychology, I love all of it, and like I love learning more about like the mind and how it actually works, and that cognitive thinking. It just
Yeah.
like it really fascinates me.
So what are people generally coming to you? They're specifically coming to you for what? Is it usually around data
Yeah.
science? What are they when they hire you? What is it that they're primarily
Yeah, sure.
looking to?
So realistically, they come to me to land a job, right? So I'd say about 95% of people
Yeah.
to help them land that job. Sometimes it can be for that second
Hmm.
job or that transition from a different job, but typically it is when they're breaking into the industry, right? So I help most people break into the industry. And yeah, so typically what I would say is that like what they come for me is breaking into the industry. But what they get is also how to, not just tackle this goal, but to tackle any goal in life, right? And that's realistically what I want them to get out of my mentorship.
Yeah. Awesome. So you're traveling around the world for a year. This is not something I'd heard about before, and now I can't unhear it. It's just the coolest thing in the world. I want to do it as soon as I possibly can. So how did that come about? How did you end up doing this with
Sure.
remote
So do you
work?
want me to go like way back until when okay.
Totally. Yeah. Tell the whole story. We got
Yeah,
plenty of
so
time.
um, I'll do quickly the story, the non-detailed point. Like essentially, my
All right.
second year university, I went to a doctor's and I need to eat a lot of meals, right? Like I normally eat 9 meals a day or whatever. I'm trying to cut down that to six or whatever, but I need a lot of food. Anyways, they took my blood. I fell through the wall. Okay, and like I made this human-sized hole in the wall. They brought me to this. Okay, this
Okay.
doctor starts talking to me. They give me this cookies and juice and all that stuff, right? And they're like, "Hey, how you doing?" We make conversation to see if I have a concussion or whatever. And one of the questions was he asked, "Is like, hey, what are you doing?" And I told him that hey, I'm doing software engineering, blah blah blah. And he said, "Oh, you know what? You can travel the world, do that, right? Travel the world and work wherever with
Mm.
software." And I didn't even realize that. Right? Like it didn't was never a thing until I did that. So that was 8.5 years ago from now, right? But that was the first
Oh
time I'm
wow.
like, okay, this is what I'm working towards, right? Cool. Now I need to finish my 6 year
Yeah.
degree. Cool, great. Now I need to get the, I would say the independent slash financial situation good, right? And then like
Yeah.
live the lifestyle, like your dream life that you want to live, right? So kind of going that is
Yeah.
that like it was always in my mind to do that for 8 years, right? And it kind of I was going to
Right.
do it in 2021. Um, and it was still like kind of the end of the pandemic, but it was like on off kind of thing. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just wait a year. But yeah, how I found
Yeah. When
yeah,
they shut
exactly. So
down.
how I found remote year was honestly
Yeah.
just like um, just through Instagram ads, and I'm like, hey, travel the world, work remotely. This is super cool, right? And
I
what?
love it.
And then kind of your brain, it's like, should I do it? Should I take the leap? And that was probably for a while. And then the salesperson,
Like a year, two
yeah. So it's like
years?
I was
How long
I
was
was gonna
that
do
back
it
and forth?
that thing, and then once you like kind of yeah. So once you
Uh-huh.
reject it, it's like okay. Then it's like then I was like okay, do I really want this or whatever? Going through my mind, and then the sales call lady,
Yeah.
she called me. She's like, hey, we have a 10% off, and I'm like, this is a sign. I'm in, right? So then I bought it, yeah, and
Got
then
him.
I started it 2 months ago.
Always follow
Yeah,
up on
exactly.
sales.
So honestly, like I booked it in March 2022, right? So roughly a year after I was going to go on it, and now I'm starting in beginning of 2023.
That's amazing. And so I mean, you guys are not just like jumping around one little area. You're going
Literally.
around the world. I mean, all the way through Croatia to Japan. Is there anything on the list that you're super stoked about, or one or two
So I
countries
would
or
say is
cities?
that like this is my first time traveling realistically leaving like North America, Canada or US, right? I've only been to those. So it's like
Cool.
I don't really have expectation. And also like one of the
Yeah.
sayings in like the program is that like remove your expectations, right? Like
Yeah.
comparison is the
Yeah. I
thief
like
of
that.
joy, right? So remove those expectations, right?
Ah,
So realistically, I'm
I love
excited for
that.
all the countries. I also have no idea because I don't haven't researched, I haven't done that. And that's kind of the cool part about this program
Yeah.
is that like they plan my travel and my social life and I just get to do my passions, the things that I get know about, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I loved when we were in Peru, like they did
Yeah.
karaoke night, like they just do normal stuff and everyone gets together and it doesn't have to be like
Yeah.
country, specific or anything, but they do all these excursions. And so yeah, that's interesting. They plan your social life. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. And everyone's communicating on like what's going on this night, that night. And so everyone's kind of, all the WhatsApp conversations of what's going on. And so super cool. Yeah, I mean that's a big jump. I mean, I don't think I traveled until like really traveled until my early 30s. Um, but man, that's just amazing. I mean, what you're going to learn in sort of just the diversity of people and things to do. And I mean, I feel like it just broadens your horizons on what all is out there. And I noticed in Peru, because I met with some business owners down there, and there's just so much money
Oh
in the
yeah.
world. There's so much business, there's so much opportunity, there's so many things that businesses you could get into and ideas. And so that's pretty
Yeah.
exciting. I know in Peru the plan was to do Machu Picchu. What happened with Machu Picchu and what was the second one called?
Um Wakachina?
Wakachina?
Yeah, Wakachina.
Is that Wakachina? So explain what happened with those excursions.
Yeah, so essentially, they kind of, for the safety of our program, they just decided to kind of cancel it due to protesting in Lima due to like the election and who is the leader and stuff. To be honest, I don't know too much. Other
Yeah.
than that, other also, I don't have kind of more in depth opinion on it. So because
Yeah.
I'm not from it, so um, that's okay. Like to me, what I would say is like again, I did this to someone to plan my social life, right? To get
Yeah.
delegate, I'm all about automating and delegation. So it's that like now I get to work on what I am best at, right? So
Yeah.
if the plan changes, cool. I never knew the plan originally, so it doesn't matter. Right? It's just a plan.
Right. But
Um,
talk about when we went on the dune buggies.
yeah, okay.
What we did do in Peru that was pretty cool. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. So we went on these dune buggies, which I thought we were just rolling to the restaurant. To be honest, nobody told us what was going on, And again,
Zero expectations.
yeah, zero. So we go on these like the sand dunes with these dune buggies, and these things were
So cool.
flying. Oh
Oh,
yeah, you were
so
sitting
cool.
with me. So we were at
Yeah.
the back, which I don't know about you, but I had no roof over me, and it was terrifying, right? Like I'm like,
It was
and
those
then,
seatbelts were literally holding you from flying out.
and it
There's no
literally
joke.
kept on falling off, and I'm like, oh
Yep.
goodness
It was
gracious,
like it's
right?
one at a time. Yeah, at least one's on. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
same.
It's like, and like we had the biggest cart, so it's like our back end would absolutely just fly, right? And I
Yeah,
know that you're tall as well, but like our knees would literally hit the handlebars when we go up, right? And
yeah,
yeah, anyways, and then we like go to this oasis, and it's just kind of chill, and everybody thinks like this is the big surprise, and
yeah,
then they're like, oh, we're gonna go for just a quick little to see the sunset a little bit different. It's just better over there. So we pull up to
yeah.
this party with a private DJ on like this sand dunes with this
As
like
far as
fire,
the eye can see.
yeah, with like a
Yeah,
sand pit or a fire pit with like
yeah.
seats all around, and like it was a cool vibe with like fruit and
So
snacks,
cool.
and the sunset was just unreal. So it was an amazing
Yeah.
surprise, to be honest.
And there was a DJ and a
Yeah,
bartender serving pisco sours.
yeah,
But yeah, and then everyone just went up on the ridge, and that there's that sunset, and I think I got a pretty cool video of you. I don't know if I sent it to you
yeah. And honestly,
from
it's the
being
first
there.
time in my life where we ever just like actually counted down the sunset, right? Like, 10, 9, right? Like you actually could see it go, which is
It was
wild.
so significant, you know. It's
Yeah,
like you wanted to like treasure every second of it
yeah,
because you've just never seen anything like that before.
for sure.
And I mean, literally in the middle of just desert everywhere. I've never, never been in that situation.
Yeah.
Um,
And then we
and
danced
I
and
was just getting to know
partied.
people,
Yeah,
but like as everyone kind of warmed up and you're talking to people, it is. I just realized it's such a unique group of people that are willing to go out into the world like that. I mean, it's very brave people,
yeah.
that are just leaving everything behind.
That
So there was something about that group that I was like, I like all these. I like everyone. Like I liked everyone that I met, but they were very different people at the same
Yeah.
time.
So kind of like I've had this exact conversation with a couple people in the program, and it's weird because a bunch of
Mhm.
us thought like, oh, we wouldn't kind of get along, or there would people be like, but what you have to we kind of remember, we all kind of took in is that like we all have this little thing in common of like we're being brave and we want to grow and we're willing to take those
Right,
chances, right? And like
right.
I know that a lot of people consider this luck, right? And I personally don't like the term luck, is because you know luck. It's when preparation meets opportunity, right? It's not luck that I
Right.
just started a
Purely.
trip around the
Yeah.
world that I can be a digital nomad, right? 8
Yeah.
years, right? 8.5 years of me working towards this goal, right? So I
Yeah.
wouldn't say it's not just a flip of thing. And yeah, like if someone has the money, they can do it. But taking the leap of with 30 strangers to go around the world and continue your
Yeah.
life, right? Like this is not when you're retired. We all still have jobs, or like
Yeah.
95% of us still have jobs. We work
Sure.
daily, right? A lot of
Sure.
us are entrepreneurs. We're still putting 80-hour weeks, right? Like
Working
it's
all day.
yeah, right. It's a
Yeah.
crazy experience, and like you said, it's like you feel like you know everybody, or you like feel like you connected with everybody, but also everybody's so different, which is really cool in the sense of that like it's just wild of how these random 30 strangers came to meet each other. And
Yeah.
like I'm a big fan of Big Brother. Did I tell you about this? But
So I dated someone who I watched one full episode of Big Brother
okay.
and it was fascinating.
So like
Fascinating.
as a Canadian, I always watched the American and the Canadian version, but everybody loved the American version better, right? And it was literally a
Yeah.
bunch of 30 people, random strangers, come to a house
Yeah.
and they compete to too long. And what my parents, whenever they would walk in, like, why do they always say I love you? You just met these strangers. But it's just like, it's crazy that when you spend all this time, like I literally see these
Yeah.
people almost daily, if not daily, for all the
Yeah.
events and these random things that we do. And it's like we are one family kind of thing traveling the world.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how fast.
Quickly in a few weeks,
Yeah.
probably by third week, fourth week of Peru. I mean, it's everyone's real. I mean, I was there for 10 days and I felt close to you. I felt really close to a lot of
Yeah.
people. But yeah, that is amazing. And as much as you're going to explore the world, beyond, it's like the people you're going to explore is
Yeah.
I think a huge benefit as well. I mean, you're going to you're really getting to know people from around the world that you have had like these intimate moments with, these amazing
Sure, yeah.
experiences for a year. And then everyone's going to go back, but they're going to have this network and connection. And, that's those are people you probably have, friendships for life with.
I,
So,
yeah, literally on that, like going back to our point about a mentorship, right? Like often,
yeah,
like two things is like you either go for a mentor, right? Like you either get the one-on-one mentor where you're trying to get to that goal faster, or you go into like
yeah,
a what's it called, a master class or a group coaching where you're trying to get like
yeah,
like-minded people and trying to get those
help each
accountability
other.
buddies, right? And in a way, I
Yeah.
feel like I got a bunch of like I signed up for a mentorship program, like there's a master class because it's like and we all talk about
Yeah.
this, we joke about this, is that like with our skills all together, we could make a business, right? We have
Sure.
funding, we have somebody to
Eric
pay, right?
and
We
yeah,
we
for
have
sure.
content creators,
Yeah.
we have marketing, right? We have CEO, right? We have
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
things.
Amber. Yeah.
Yeah, we have all these things that we could make a good team. Like it's weird. So it's
For
just like
sure.
even talking and like now people are starting to do workshops, right? Like so they present something, some on real estate. It's like I love real estate, but I don't know
Amazing.
anything about it, right? Like I want to get to it eventually, but like even
Yeah.
learning these things is like oh cool, right? Like I'm actually like hiring a mentor in a way, right? Like working with all these
Yeah.
people that I get to not just learn about their life, but also like what their passions are and also like how we can all help each other. And I know that Amanda, like our mutual connection is that
Yeah.
we've been helping each other a lot with like content creation and stuff that like we're both
Yeah.
struggle at kind of stuff. And it's like it's great, right? Like so it's cool to kind of just connect with the people and get their
Totally.
passions as well.
Yeah. The that accountability partner is huge. I don't know if I told you this, but when I hired Thomas Bisson, I think I don't want to say how much. I don't. He may charge more than that, but it was
That's
like less than $1,000 a month, let's say.
okay.
And he, the first call we had, losing weight was my biggest motivation. And he said, "All right, here's what we're gonna do. Super easy. You're just gonna send me a picture of everything you eat."
Okay.
And I was like, "Okay, all right." And I got off the call and I was like, "I'm paying this guy this much money to basically tweet to him what I eat. This is stupid." I got a really shitty attitude about it. And then like 4 days in, I was like, I can't send him a picture of the whole sleeve of cookies. Like I can only, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So immediately, because I was accountable to him, I was like, who eats a whole sleeve of cookies? Like I saw how much I was eating for the first time just because I had to send it to him. It's weird,
yeah,
like you can just put extra creamer in your coffee and but the moment you have to, I mean, it's documenting it. The moment I have to document
yeah,
it, it's like, oh, it's like looking at how much you spend on coffee or groceries or whatever. It's
yeah.
like the moment you start tracking it, but that accountability that I had to share it with him just was a huge motivator.
Yeah. And on that
Um,
point is like exactly what you do, I do for time, right? I get people to
mm,
track their time because often people like don't realize how much they procrastinate or how much time they're actually spending. They're like, "Oh, I'm looking for a job 24/7." Okay, are you
are
actually,
you?
right? They're like, "Oh, no, actually I'm only
Yeah,
spending 5 hours a week." Okay, so that's a lot different
yeah,
from 24/7, right? So it's like once you
yeah,
break that down and actually track it and here comes the data, right? Actually look at the data, you're like,
yeah.
okay, something needs to change, right? And it's like, okay,
That could be 6 months to a job versus
for
6 weeks
sure.
to a job.
And
Yeah,
there's also like a part of my course where it's like, okay, how much time we talk about time management, we kind of assess where we're our time wasters, blah blah blah. We talk about all the procrastinations, how to do that, get the habits. But essentially, what it is, it's like, what are your expectations? And there's two things that I like to say. It's like, the saying is like, finding a job is a full time job. Have you ever heard of that?
no,
Oh, okay. So it's very common. It's okay.
yeah,
So finding a job is a full time job. People often say, and
yeah,
often people
makes
say it's
sense.
like to find a job, it takes roughly, on average, 4 months. Okay. So if you take
Hmm,
those two like sayings, which are based on data, right, from history, it's essentially saying if you
yeah,
work 40 hours a week for 4 months, you'll land a job, right? You'll land a job in 4 months,
right,
right? So if you're doing, let's say, 20 a week, cool. That directly correlates to 8 months. You
yeah,
just
it's gonna be a
doubled your
while.
time. Cool. You're only putting five. Okay, then your expectation is a year plus, right? Right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And 4 months is the average,
Yeah,
so it could be. margin of error, you know, plus or
For
minus. So
sure, right?
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like, and like that accountability is kind of like why I love mentor, even or even love the other
huge.
things. It's like just by tracking it or seeing those habits or like where you're wasting or eating, right? Like those little things add up, right?
Yeah,
It's not who you are, right? Those big decisions. It's those daily simple habits that accumulate over a long period of time, right?
yeah, yeah. There's also some magic in just outside looking in,
Oh,
and you
for sure.
just there's limiting beliefs. There's things that you just can't see as clearly from your perspective. And when you have someone else look at it, sometimes it's like, oh my God, it's so
Yeah.
obvious to them. And the moment they say it, you're like, yeah, that's exactly what it,
I,
that's exactly what it has been.
yeah.
Yeah. And I've been struggling for weeks, you know, and that was
Yeah.
just a
And
real simple
I think you
answer.
literally helped me with that like 2 weeks ago. It was like something I was
Oh
struggling with.
yeah.
Like, do you remember? It was like with content or something, or oh, I was like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
traveling the world and I'm having struggle. Like, it's a life changing experience. Like, I'm having time, and then you're just like you put in perspective, like, gave me that tough love, right, Jared? There's always going to be something going
Yeah.
on in your life, right? There's always going to be, and it's like shit. That's the same thing I say to my mentees. It's like, how did I
I
not?
remember. Like, that's what I tell my people. I know,
Right?
but that's the magic
Yeah.
of it. And it's also like having the having the openness to hear that, you know, like you have to accept that. And that is the relationship you have with a mentor, is you're giving them permission to call you on your bullshit, or to hold you accountable. And that's, you know, that's not something most of our friends are going to do. I mean, that can create tension and potentially cause friction in a relationship, whether it's, you know, your parents could tell it and you're like, oh, they're my parents, you kind of ignore it to your friends. But to have a mentor and that is their job,
Yeah.
and you've opted into that relationship, is really powerful because you're listening. um, and so yeah, I'm a huge
Yeah.
fan. I need to jump back in. I spoke with a guy the other day. We just had a
Yeah.
conversation. He's in video advertising, and just going back and forth with him, he was saying some things that I was like, oh, like I miss having someone call me
Yeah.
on my stuff. Um, well, cool. So, what else did I have about? So, tell me, you know, you were in Peru. Oh, I have a
Yeah.
question. This is something that I kind of noticed with a lot of folks there. Is it difficult? Is it harder than you thought to focus on work when you're in an incredibly cool country? Like, is there any tension between like, okay, I have to work, but there's like so many fun things and excursions and things you could do, versus when you're at home, it seems a little bit easier to focus on work. What's that like doing
I would say
this remote year?
yes and no, right? And what I would say is that like it's definitely different for other people. Like there is that FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. And when you see in your group
Yeah.
chat of like, oh, we're all going out for dinner when you have to work or you have a client call or whatever, a meeting
Yeah.
that you have to do, it's like, yeah, it can definitely, but it also puts a reality aspect of like, okay, why are we on this journey, right? And it's like, if you're on this
Hmm.
journey to make friends and socialize, cool. I love that for you, right? And it's just like, it also
Yeah.
like brings me back to levels. Like, what am I here for, right? I am here to prove to myself that I can live this lifestyle, right? Like I can do it and grow and not take a hurdle, right? Of it doesn't matter what environment it is, you can be more productive. And kind of some of us have actually found that's that like
Sure.
when you actually have more things to do, you're actually more productive. And it sounds counterintuitive, but it's just that like you don't have time to procrastinate, right? Like the first month in
Yeah.
Peru, I didn't have time to procrastinate on scroll through Instagram or scroll through LinkedIn. I didn't have time, right? It was either work or it was either this planned events, right? So it also kind of like
Yeah.
pushes you to okay, right? And it's the same thing I kind of did in university, right? So something that's about me is that like I decided to become a full-time data scientist before I graduated, right? So I had essentially like I got promoted from an internship to a full-time data scientist for the last 2 years of my
Yeah.
undergrad, right? Which is very uncommon for someone to actually work that, right? So I was working full-time school and
Yeah.
essentially full-time data scientist. And essentially,
Hmm.
like when people's like, how do you do it? How do you do it? Right. But it's like the more time you have, it's like you don't have time to, oh, is this perfectionism or like, is this the perfect way to do an assignment? Or is this like,
It's got to be
yeah,
done.
right? It's just like, get
Yeah.
crap done, right? It's like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
motto that
Yeah.
like follows me for years, but realistically in business and stuff, it's like just good enough, right? Nothing is perfect, right? You
For
won't have a perfect
sure.
resume.
For
You won't
sure.
have a perfect content. You won't have a perfect video. Just good
When you edit
enough.
video, you could
For
literally do it
sure. Yeah.
forever. Literally
Yeah.
forever. Make it better and better and better and better, and it'll never get
And this
old
is
for
the
sure.
same thing with like I want to teach people who are coming into data science, right? Because remember, like data
Yeah.
is an experiment, right? And if you think about an experiment, experiment can never end unless you understand the why or the scope, right? Because if you could always get a better model,
Right.
you could always get more data, you could always get more computation, right? You could always improve it. So this is
Right. And we get more
exactly,
accurate.
right? Improve it in
Yeah.
some way. So
Yeah.
understanding like what makes you between the difference between a beginner and an
So good.
intermediate or advanced data scientist is like understanding like what's good enough and like what the client wants, right? And anytime you're in a corporate or in like a job, right? It's realistically what's the end user want, right? If they just want a visualization and you're spending weeks on building the coolest, baddest AI, right? And they just want to see where their data is,
Yeah.
it's a waste of time, right? Like you got to understand like the scope of it, right? So understanding that why. I don't know how we got this,
Right.
but I got here, but I apologize. Sorry for
Yeah. No, I like it. No, same thing with with Google
yeah,
Ads. Once we reach statistical relevance with a comfortable margin of error, we make
yeah,
decisions. Like we have to move because there's 12 other variables that are changing. So once we can kind of nail these things down, we have to move to the next step. And we're going to be right most of the time, and every once in a while we might be wrong, but we're moving the ball
yeah,
forward and we're making progress.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah, that definitely rings true in
yeah,
what I do.
exactly. And like of like it's also related in data science where it's like people it's like, okay, like you want the best accuracy in your AI or your model, right? Where it's like, okay, cool, you can
Yeah.
spend an extra month getting from 86% to 87 and a half, right? Or we can just say
Yeah.
it's good at 80,
But is it worth it? Probably
right?
not.
Yeah, good at 86, and let's
Yeah.
continue the next thing on, right? Just good enough, right?
Yeah. What's the opportunity cost of 3 months and
Yeah,
1%?
exactly.
Like what else could have been done in
Yeah,
that
and it's the
time?
same thing
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the
New
job
text
search,
or
right?
whatever.
Cool, you can spend hours on, changing your resume and all that stuff, or you can just think it's just good enough, and
Send
yeah,
it.
shoot your
Yeah.
shot, right?
Get the conversation started. Yeah. Yeah. That's good stuff. So what are some of the like what is there something common about the people you work with, that maybe some limiting beliefs, some misunderstandings about data science, AI? Maybe it's like how smart they need to be, or the skill sets they need, or how easy it is to learn, or what are some of the kind of common misconceptions people
Sure.
have about it?
So I guess, are you specifically talking about AI and data science in general, or are you talking about like kind of who I work with and breaking into the
I would
industry, right?
Yeah, I would say like breaking in, specifically who you work with.
Yeah. So what I would say is like the two biggest is um, like your ethic and like that confidence slash mindset, right? Are you? I mean, you still
Mm,
there? You froze.
I am.
Yeah.
Can you
No,
not
you're
hear
good. You're
me?
good. Okay.
Okay, I'll edit that out. Just
Yeah.
restate
So
it.
the two limiting or the two biggest beliefs or like the common things that I see in continuous in each mentee is that like the belief of them like slash confidence of not knowing and like the work ethic, right? Like, so what I would say is that
Hmm.
do you need a PhD? No. Do you need a software engineering or computer science degree? No. You can learn any of this online
Hmm.
if you want to. How hard do you want to work? How much effort would you put in? Something this is slightly off topic, but I just want something that I was saying I heard is that like if people often think it's like if they want a high paying job, they think of doctors or dentists, right? And I heard this on a
Hmm.
podcast like maybe a month ago. It's just like if people really want to make the most amount of money, they'll go into AI or sorry, go data or software. And the reason why is like if you put the effort
Hmm.
in to get your PhD or to get your MD, right, and become a doctor in the same thing
Hmm.
in software or data, like independently, you'd be making $500,000
Sure.
in like a third of the time as just to get to a doctor, right? Which is like people don't realize that
Yeah.
it's actually very easy to learn, right? It's very simple to learn and get this information. Actually doing it is the hard part, right?
Yeah.
And it's just built on those habits. So kind of
Yeah.
based on going back to your question
It's
is that
interesting.
you said it's like what are the common things I see or the limiting beliefs is that like it's backing that confidence, right? Like you can do it if you put the effort in, right?
Yeah.
I lost my other thought. So it comes
Yeah. No, that's okay. I'm curious if somebody let's say somebody's listening to this and they've had just no thoughts about AI or machine learning, but they're listening to you and they're like, okay, maybe. What would be like the first step? What's that first, that, the four dummies, the just the entry level overview that you would recommend to somebody
Sure.
breaking in,
So
thinking
of
about it?
course, I always like to ask is like, what's your why, right? Because if you
Mm-hmm.
don't like solving open-ended problems and you don't like learning every single day and you're just aiming for the high salary or the job title, it's not going to be fulfilling to you, right? Like data science grows and it's
Yeah,
tech and data grows so fast, and to keep up with that, like you have to work on it daily and be okay with sucking 99% of the time. Like you won't know
yeah,
crap, right? Like you won't know it. Like after my
yeah.
3 years of being in the industries and my 6 year degree, I still feel like I know nothing, right? That's 9 years, and I still feel
Mm-hmm.
like I know nothing, right? Which is ridiculous of how
Yeah,
fast it's actually going and how much effort you actually need to do it. So, kind of one thing I tell my mentees
yeah,
is like, be okay with sucking. And it's honestly, it's like biggest like life lesson is that if you can take that into anything you put in, right? Be okay with sucking as a father. Be okay with doing it at the beginning, right? You will work on it daily, right? And
yeah.
improve it, and you will be just good enough, right? And that's all you need.
There, yeah, there's not a single comedian alive that didn't get real
Yeah.
comfortable sucking for a long time. And that's sucking in public. Like, it's public humiliation. Yeah, it's brutal, but it's absolutely required. I also like, be comfortable asking
For
dumb
sure. Yeah.
questions. Who cares? You're going to ask it one time and then you're going to get the answer. Or you can be arrogant, pretend like you know the answer, and just be dumb about it for the
Yeah.
rest of your life. like just be humble. That's how I try
Yeah.
to be humble. I know there's so much I don't know. But that is a huge,
Yeah.
it's a big lesson there. And I think it's a lot of people's egos get in the way of, fear of looking stupid,
Yeah.
or even, being afraid to ask real
Yeah.
simple
So the
questions.
two quotes I'd say, I
Um,
know you got to hop off. So the two
no,
quotes I
you're
love
good.
to
You're good. Oh no, yeah, we're gonna get a doorbell here. Hold on.
the two quotes I love to live by is be humble or get humble, right? And also, you're never the
Yeah,
smartest person in the
right.
room, meaning that there's always so much information you can take in from somebody else, even if they're completely different. So check the ego, right? Be humble and just like learn as much as you can, right? But going back to your question of like where I
Yeah,
would
love
start,
that.
right? After you acknowledge that you, let's say you do think, okay, data science is, I like solving problems, I like do that. You like the mathematical mind, right? What I would say is probably start with like a Python for everyone or data science for everyone. And if you actually enjoy it, right? And often people come to me is that they think
Yeah,
they're starting at level zero. Often, if you take your life experiences and your life learnings, you're not at level zero, right? If you're coming from software, you're not at level zero. You already know how to code. If you're coming from project manager, cool. You already know how to manage a
right,
project. Cool. That's very important in data science, right? So
right.
people like come from bio.
Mm,
Cool, right? You already know about like how the data needs to look. Like you have those skills. So you can always take some things from your previous experience of
interesting.
wherever, regardless whatever you do it, and put the effort and work in and get there in 6 to 12 months, right? If you want to do that, then you can do it. You're not at level zero. What I always say often is sell your strengths and work on your weaknesses. Cool, right? If we know how what we suck at,
I
we
love
improve
that.
them. But if we also know what we're really good at, sell them,
Right,
right? People will give you the chance. And in the job
right.
search, right? Like that is very, very important.
Yeah, you mentioned 500,000 number, but can you kind of give me what the average, like, if you dedicated X years of your life to this industry, what does that salary look like in 3 5
Yeah, sure.
years?
So realistically, I'll say Canada and US because I'm doing both of them. So realistically,
Mm-hmm.
as a data analyst, right? I'll say data analyst. So I don't know if you're familiar, but it's like data analyst, data engineer, data scientist, and machine learning engineer, right? Those are the four biggest ones in data science.
Awesome.
Okay. So what I would say is at data analyst, you're probably starting at minimum 80K in the States, right? You're probably starting roughly at minimum of 60K in
Mm-hmm.
Canada. Okay. And then in a data scientist, you're typically starting above 100K, right? And again, if you're a 19-year-old, right, just learned from online, starting at 120 with no education, that's pretty freaking
Not
good,
bad.
right? Cool. And if you only,
Right.
yeah, right, exactly. So it's like, yeah, like if you only progress that, right? cool. You be
Sure.
easily make into 200Ks, right? And where I said the 500Ks is that like,
Yeah.
cool. If you put the same amount of effort is getting to Google's or getting to the FANGs, right? Facebook, which I know it's Meta now, but
Right.
you know, FANG stands for Facebook, Amazon,
Yep.
Apple, Netflix, and Google, right? So if you put the effort, the same effort to finish and
Yeah.
get your doctorate, right, and become a doctor, to get into Google, it's the same
Yep.
percentage. It's 1% people become doctors and 1% people get into Google. Cool. If you put the same effort in, you're cool.
Love
You're
it.
set for life, and that's a $500,000 job, right? With the stocks and all that stuff, cool, right? You're set, your family for life, realistically.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. So, Jaret, where can people find you, support you, follow you? Where are
Yeah,
you at
sure.
on
So
the
on
internet?
Instagram, it's just at Jaret André. So JaretAndre. And the same thing for LinkedIn, just Jaret André. I do have an accent, so it's André on LinkedIn, but it still searches up that. And what I would say is my website is in progress, so it's not up yet and running. But essentially, if
Mhm.
you're struggling and you need help, please reach out. Right? I know that feeling, and I don't want anyone else to kind of feel like that and go through that.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. We'll end it there. Thanks, Jaret.